When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
If fashion is your thing, eBay is it. eBay's where I find all my favorites, from handbags to iconic streetwear, all authenticated. For real. This time, a little Supreme, some Gucci. I even have that vintage Prada on my watch list. That's why eBay's my go-to for all my go-tos. Yeah, eBay, the place for new, pre-loved, vintage, and rare fashion. eBay, things people love.
Slow Burn Media, Evergreen Podcasts, and Killer Podcasts presents Who Killed, a podcast that provides a voice for the voiceless. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Who Killed. I'm your host, Bill Huffman, and this is a Slow Burn Media, Evergreen Podcasts, and Killer Podcast production. Last week we ended on a rant from one Jesse Pollack, the author of the new book, Room 100, the story about Sid and Nancy and a murder at the Chelsea Hotel. So, that book just released on Tuesday of this week, and I recommend you check it out. But Jesse and I, we got sidetracked and we talked a lot about the Gilgo Four, and I had to end last week's episode after about 50 minutes because I realized we had about an hour and 40-minute conversation about this case. And Jesse is one to be very honest about how he feels, where the case stands, and if he thinks it's getting the proper attention, to Shannan Gilbert's family. Obviously, there's a connection there. So listen to part 2. And again, thanks to Jesse for making time out of his busy schedule to join me to discuss this very important case and shine a light on some of the inefficiencies in the world of true crime and how Shannan's family should be compensated for some of these movies and tales of woe. So check out part 2, and I will see you next week for a brand new episode of Who Killed.
So it's just like another strange, this is something that should have been touched upon. It could all be a big nothing burger in the fog of time. And, people naturally exaggerate sometimes when they're thrown into a national story or when they're in kind of a scary, traumatic moment. Memory can be kind of weird. But I do think it's very interesting that just about every single person involved in that incident told the police and media something completely fucking different than what's on that recording.
I just feel like they're just dropping the ball again. They're focused on the fact that Rex is in jail and they can kind of toss everything else.
This is all pre-Rex too, because even
it was,
the cops...
Well, it was before they knew he existed, yes.
Exactly. Back when, even before the Gilgo Four was found, people were understandably saying, well, why hasn't the driver been detained and charged? This is kind of a weird thing, isn't it? And I can't remember the name of the detective who was on the case at the time, but he said something like, oh, well, no, we interviewed Michael Pack and everything that he told us and told the media lines up with what we hear on the 911 call. And that's not true. You cannot hear him start up a car and follow her. He's certainly not shouting her name. There's nothing like that. And for those of you who haven't heard the call and are saying, but Jesse, didn't you just tell us at the beginning of the episode that, the call quality wasn't very good? Yeah, the fidelity isn't great, but it's clear enough where you can hear fucking birds chirping because the sun is coming up. You would hear a car engine start to follow you, and you would certainly hear someone screaming Shannan in the background. Like, I don't know what he did. I don't know if he went back into Brewer's house and talked to him, or if he sat there trying to call her phone for a period of time, and that's why, like, he's not following her immediately. But his story that, no, I turned the car on and I was pursuing her and I was shouting her name and she just kept running, like, that's not true. He also did not hang around for an hour looking for her. We know this because the cops were there within 15 minutes of her call ending. So it's like, If I was a detective and I had that in front of me, I would be certainly asking Michael Pack a lot more questions. And I have not heard a single podcast or seen a single journalist since I heard these tapes really press this guy on these things. Like, well, hey, listen, how come you lied about following her in the car? You never did that. How come you lied about her just running past the car? How come you didn't tell anyone that you actually grabbed her and she freaked out and started screaming? Like, there's that whole issue that was a mystery for the public for years. Like, why was Shannan's jacket and one of her earrings found in Joseph Brewer's driveway? Well, I wasn't there, but I hear a struggle in the driveway on that recording, and I would, bet dollars to donuts that that's when her jacket and her earring got yanked off. But no one else is pursuing this. No one else is pressing this guy in these details. And I think that's even more important to look into now, because if Rex didn't kill her, we need to figure out who did. And he would be a prime suspect if I was a detective. I'm not trying to slander the guy or say anything, but just as from an investigative standpoint, it's like, we've got a guy that's told at least 3 provable lies about what happened that night, and he can't get a story straight about when he supposedly left this area. Maybe we need to dig a little bit deeper here and find out if he had something to do with why this woman ended up dead in a fucking marsh shortly afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I'm about to get sued by Michael Pack. I'm sorry, everybody.
No, it's all good. I mean, I just, you're voicing the concerns, I think, of a lot of the listeners, a lot of the viewers of the documentary, and that is, there's a lot of left open stories and storylines or possible suspects. Because it was a rush
job.
Yeah.
You can tell how early Garbus started working on this, because there's a moment where they're interviewing Maureen's sister, Missy, and you can tell that Rex has not been charged with Maureen's murder yet. So that's going on 2 years ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if the afternoon they arrested Rex, Netflix was already working out a deal with Garbus and her team. Like, yeah, no, we got to get that docuseries out now, instead of doing the response. Like, I'm sorry, why are we putting out a multi-part docuseries before the fucking trial?
It's like what they're doing with Karen Reed, man. Like, what the fuck? It's like in the middle of the trial. Like, oh, let's just jeopardize everything by throwing everything out onto national television or whatever streaming service. And
well, that's even going into not even like the particulars of, oh, well, this could jeopardize the trial. I mean, you could say that about any sort of media coverage, but I guess I'm fucking naive where I still think, well, the purpose of a documentary is to inform. And it's like, no, it's fucking disposable entertainment for fucking murder hags and, wannabe Dahmers and all this shit. And it's just frustrating to me. Like, if you were going to do this responsibly, it's like, well, yeah, let's wait for the trial, because I'm sure more important information is going to come out. And of course, once the verdict is read, that's the ending. But no, it's like, oh, there's an arrest. Gotta cash in. It's like, fuck, man.
Yeah, I mean, and I think at the end of our discussion, wrapping up our discussion on this particular documentary, is that Garbus did what she did. She marketed as, we're focusing on the victims, and people can make their own judgments.
Yeah, they mentioned them. They showed a couple photos of them. That's about it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can make their own judgments about the documentary themselves, and they'll probably come away with a lot of the same feelings that we have in regards to it. Because again, like you said, I mean, once you have something like this, if you're working on it and then there's an arrest, it's like, let's get it out. And sometimes with that being done, you don't necessarily get a solidly produced product. And clearly the Gilbert family deserves some sort of restitution and the exploitation of her life. And
well, they definitely deserved it for the movie that
for
was
sure
made about their life. Like, I mean, you know, it's one thing to say, like, for this documentary, it's like, well, we're dealing with, you know, nearly a dozen victims that we know of, and that's a lot of families. And if we try to bring everyone involved and pay everyone, like, that's going to be a whole mess and opens up legal issues. Like, I could understand that. But Lost Girls, like, that Netflix movie is like a 16th of the book, which again, I understand you're taking a 350-page book and turning it into an hour-and-a-half movie. So in, you know, trimming it down, they made the creative decision to focus almost exclusively on Mary Gilbert and, you know, Shannan's family. I don't think Stevie is the sister that it doesn't even exist in that. It's like they have changed so much up in that where it's like, okay, like if you're going to make a movie just because it's not a Long Island serial killer movie, that is a Shannan Gilbert movie. And if you're going to do that, what fucking excuse do you have for not reaching out to Shannan's surviving family? What excuse do you have for not trying to compensate for their time? Even the fucking National Enquirer will pay someone for an interview. I personally don't because, number one, like, don't have the budget. Like, we're authors and writers. We get paid pennies on the penny. And, you know, it's also an ethical question, you know, like, well, if you pay someone for an interview, are they then just saying whatever you want to hear? But I think it's different when it comes to making a movie about someone's family. And there's no excuse for what they did there, and it bothers me. And now, of course, you know, the media's got to, try and put like a pretty picture on it of, oh, well, this documentarian is shining a light on, you know, people that were cast off by society. And it's like, no, this documentarian is cashing in because the trial's about to start.
Right. And same with Netflix.
Like, I'm sorry. If friends of Liz are listening, like, listen, I understand you're going to be pissed off at me saying this, but as someone that has sat with the families of murder victims and heard them cry and dealt with their sorrow and had to, you know, pour through police reports and autopsy photos, stuff that gives you nightmares and forces you to really ask some major questions about yourself and your motivations for doing something, it really pisses me off to see like such a callous way of doing things and then trying to frame it as this person is a hero for shining a light on this. And it's like, no, like, I'm sure she cares on some level. This again is like her second foray into making something Lisk adjacent, but she didn't care enough to involve Shannan's family on the first one, and she didn't care enough about these young women to do anything more than a surface level mention of them in these. Like, again, Jessica Taylor has maybe 10 seconds of screen time in this. Sandra Castilla is maybe mentioned twice. It's like, I don't see any real care or a labor of love or someone that sincerely is passionate about the social justice aspect of these cases. This just comes off as a lazy, quick, cash grab documentary for Netflix, which, yeah, hey, maybe, you know, if someone doesn't have access to like the 2011 A&E documentary, which was really in depth, and interviewed a lot of people that are no longer alive and for whatever reason didn't say yes to this one, yeah, it's probably a pretty good starting point, but it's also like, we're fucking 14 years into this shit being public knowledge. Like, we don't need any more starting points. Someone needs to do a deep dive. Someone needs to get this story out there. Someone needs to do a little bit more digging into some of these unanswered questions here. Otherwise, it's just product, man. You're putting out McDoubles in the true crime world at that point. It's just, fucking... I can't remember the phrase. It's just, just serving up junk food for true crime junkies.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we've kind of landed in. I mean, we built this pyramid of lives that we cover, and it's not necessary. You step over a lot of different moral questions and ethical questions when you're producing some of this stuff, and it's hard to balance out, but it definitely seems like the Gilbert family should be more involved and compensated for the straight up exploitation of their lives. And, that's, to me, that's what I got out of the documentary, other than it being a surface level. Here's the story, here's a little bit about it, but it didn't do what I hoped it would do, and that would be like engross me and say, hey, I've got some clarity now.
There's no clarity. There's no new information. There's a couple new photos of Rex that have been found, and I'm opening up a can of worms by saying this, but it also... They made the call to interview at least two people that I don't think have any business being anywhere near this case. So much so that I haven't even bothered to memorize their names because I think they're full of shit and they're useless. Like, there's that one sex worker who is like clearly under the fucking influence of something during that interview with her, and she's talking about like, oh yeah, and Rex took me out to dinner. And, he kept talking about the Lisk case. And it's like, first off, Rex wasn't taking one out to fucking dinner.
No.
No, he's having people come back to his house so he can rape them, torture them, and kill them. This isn't Pretty Woman. He's not taking Craigslist women out to a fucking restaurant. That's your first sign of bullshit there. And then there's that other woman that they have who... she tried spinning some convoluted yarn. I think she tried to say that, there was some human trafficking thing. You know what I'm talking about in the third episode where she's like, oh yeah, someone tried to kidnap me and force me into human trafficking. And then when Rex was arrested years later, I recognized his face. And then they try to make her out to be she's this important sleuth and all this shit. And she's like, and I was consulting the map, and they make it look like this is a map that she has made of where these victims were found. That's not her map. That map was made by Raul, aka Catch Lisk, who is a big researcher in the, online sleuth community with this case. And I find that really disingenuous and gross. It's like, hey, let's take this other researcher, let's take his work, and let's make it look like this random person who we have no way to prove is associated with this case at all. Let's make it look like she created this. She's doing the real detective work here.
That's
fuck off.
garbage.
That's awful.
Yeah, that's garbage.
And don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say, well, I'm not one of these you don't believe all women people. But when it comes to the biggest serial killer case of the last 25 years, I think you need to do a little bit more diligence than, well, they said that they saw them and went on a date with them and, may have been almost kidnapped and forced into some weird trafficking thing. You have to have more than, well, she says it's true when it comes to something like that. This isn't a police report we're talking about here. This is media reporting that is going to last forever.
Especially when they're intoxicated. If that's the case, then it's everything you just said is completely worthless.
Well, yeah, and two things can be true at the same time. Of course, there's a big drug epidemic problem in the world of sex work, and it's used to keep women and men and children enchained in sex work. But it's also, it's a credibility issue. If you have someone who is clearly high on camera selling a story that reeks of bullshit, as a filmmaker, at some point, you need to make the call of, should we leave this on the cutting room floor? Because if we don't, people like Jesse Pollack are going to go talk shit about it on Who Killed, and it's not going to be good for our credibility. You know what I mean? It's come the fuck on. That's the best person you could find. They spent more time on her than they did on Jessica Taylor, who was a real victim. They spent more time talking about the fucking random asshole that James Burke beat the shit out of than Sandra Castillo and Jessica Taylor and all that. You know what I mean? It's like the priorities here are all fucking wrong. It's all like, ooh, this is like this juicy little bit. We've got the call girl that got away from this Long Island serial killer. And it's like, no, you've got someone who is clearly under the influence peddling a fucking story that no one can fucking prove.
I'm kind of left just sort of wondering where it all goes from here, other than Rex's case. But I just feel like they're left Shannan on the back burner, and if we're lucky, we may find out one day what really happened.
Well, the thing that bothers me the most about his case, and I hate to say this and break it down, but I don't know if we're ever going to know any more details because they have nothing to leverage him with. You know what I mean? Like, New York doesn't have the death penalty, and I'm not like a huge death penalty advocate, but I'm also not one of these people that says the death penalty should be abolished altogether. Like, I'm sorry, like, the world would be a better place if we could kill more child molesters and serial killers. You know what I mean? Like, hate to fucking say it. You peer into darkness long enough, you're just like, yeah, I understand why we've got the death penalty now. But, like in a state like New York, if you don't have, in any other state that had it on the table, you would be able to be like, hey, listen, they're going to recommend the death penalty for you. But give us some answers, help us figure out how to close these cases. And if the answers are truthful, we will recommend life in prison without a possibility of parole. Rex isn't stupid. He knows he's going to jail for the rest of his life anyway. That's why he isn't talking. Can't say the same about his family, who are, inking $1 million deals with Peacock or whatever. That's kind of fucking weird and gross. But, he ain't saying shit. He's been behind bars for 2 years and he don't care. He ain't looking for pen pals like Manson did. He ain't giving the Barbara Waters interview. Nothing.
He's not sitting down with the radio guy from this crazy Christian radio guy that Bundy talked to on his final day.
It was comic books and masturbation that made me cut their heads off. Oh, praise Jesus.
Yeah.
The brave final confession. Good Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah, he ain't doing any of that shit. He's not like Son of Sam and leading
or BTK
fucking sermons.
BTK would be the closest example of what you would want in a situation like this, where you got actual, even though BTK probably enjoyed talking and explaining exactly what he did, I don't think you're ever going to get that from Rex.
Rex doesn't seem to be that guy. No, he's serial killers are all insular people because they have a huge secret to hide, but he seems to be really in that fucking world. And now he's probably just like, fuck it, going to jail the rest of my life anyway. You're not getting dick out of me.
Yeah.
You can't kill me. So, like, the reality I'm facing right now is my, reality. Like, what are they going to leverage him with? Like, hey, if you can help us solve these, if you could tell us who Asian Doe is, we'll get you more commissary money. Like, what are they going to do?
I don't know.
So, like, I really hate to say this, but I'm really worried that a lot of these cases are never going to be solved. Baby Doe, Peaches, Cherries, like, at the end of the day, look, at least he's never going to kill again. We know he's going to spend the rest of his life in jail, no matter what bullshit his ambulance chaser lawyer is going to try and finagle during the trial. But it's also like, I wish there was a way that we could get closure for these families. And we as the system, as a society, like, I wish there was a way to give these people some answers, because that's all they really want. They already know he's not going to kill again, but there are so many families out there that want to know what happened to their loved ones, and I just don't know if they're going to get it.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that, and I just feel terrible for the families, and I just wish that the world of true crime had a little bit more of a moral compass than it does. And
nope, too much money to be made, Bill.
I know, you can't turn off the spigot, but
too much ad money to make from Wondery.
Yeah, touche. With that being said,
no disrespect to the fine sponsors of your podcast, mind you. You run a good show. That's why I'm here.
It's all good, man. So the big thing is you got a new book coming out, and I'd love to hear. Allegedly coming out next week, Tuesday. You said that would be what, the 15th, which is also a special day for you.
Yeah, I'm turning 37. Who knew I'd make it that far with the mouth that I have on me. No one's taken me out yet, surprisingly. So, but who knows? That can always change.
Yeah.
Someone might Chapman me one of these days.
So since we've been talking for over an hour about Shannan, why don't you give us a little 5-minute preview on what your new book's going to be about?
The new book that is coming out on Tuesday the 15th is called Room 100, and it is an examination of the Sid Vicious and Nancy Spungen murder case that happened famously in the Chelsea Hotel in 1978. For those who don't know, Sid Vicious was the bass player of the landmark punk band, the Sex Pistols, and only a few short months after the band broke up, his girlfriend Nancy was found stabbed to death in the bathroom of their room at the Chelsea Hotel. Sid was arrested for it. Arguably the first time a rock star had been arrested for murder. It became this huge, weird, international true crime story. And before any concrete answers could come out, Sid overdosed and died while out on bail. So, like, that case had always fascinated me, even going back to when I was a kid and just listening to the music. And I found it very strange that there had never been like a full-on book dedicated to this weird true crime story. It's always like kind of like a footnote in your punk rock memoirs and history of rock and roll books, but never its own thing. And I spent close to 6 years researching and writing it. And like with the last book, The Acid King, which chronicled the Ricky Casso story, I quickly found out as I was, interviewing people on the punk scene. I talked to Chris Stein from Blondie. I talked to John Holmstrom, who co-founded Punk Magazine with Legs McNeil, et cetera, et cetera. And the more I talked to these people and eventually became the first journalist to get a copy of the full uncensored case file from the New York City Police Department, I was like, wow, everything people think they know about this case is completely wrong. This case is another one of these victims of like 40 years of the media regurgitating the same 5 or 6 myths over and over again. Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. That is the phrase that I was looking for earlier when we were talking about pushing out true crime junk food. It's just rinse and repeat. We're putting out, McDoubles. While hopefully this book isn't a McDouble. Hopefully those who read it will think it's more of a Big Mac, may I say, maybe an Arch Deluxe. But all jokes aside, this was a big passion project for me because I always felt that Nancy was very unfairly demonized in the media, and adding insult to injury, there was never any real conclusion to the investigation. It was just the NYPD going, well, the boyfriend's dead. Like, what are you gonna do? Who cares? And so yeah, it's coming out on Tuesday after many delays. COVID caused a huge delay in the middle of writing it. It was very, very hard to get into places and get research materials and documents and transcripts, etc. But now, after a long road, the book is finally coming out. And if you're fascinated not only by, vintage true crime from a bygone era. Sorry, there's a very loud truck going past my home right now. I can just imagine the rubber nuts swinging from the tow hitch. But anyway,
I'll cut that out.
No, you leave it in. It's funny.
Okay.
Fuck it. It's funny.
But,
who cares?
Yeah, fuck it. I know where you live.
People know. I think people know by now I'm a fucking goofball. But but all jokes aside, I could be a goofball while we're having water cooler talking about this, but this is definitely not like a jaded, sarcastic, punk rock book. This is I wanted to treat this story as this is a true crime story that just happens to be about a punk rocker. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's a very serious look into this. There's a lot of revelations. If you already think you know a lot about this case, you're going to have your mind blown. And you can find it anywhere online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, etc. I imagine several retailers will have it as well. It's being put out by Backbeat Books, who are a really great publisher that put out a lot of great music and rock and roll books. They put out the recent Jerry Nolan from the Heartbreakers and the New York Dolls, the bio about him. Sorry, say what?
I said, oh, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And that's a great book written by Kurt Weiss, who was a very big help to me while I was putting Room 100 together. So if you're into that world of punk and glam rock and you're picking up a copy of Room 100, grab his book too. It's a great sort of like, I don't know if companion piece is the right word, but they're in that same universe. There's some overlap there. But it's a very, very strange story with a lot of twists and turns that surprised even me. Like, one of the reasons why I picked this case to talk about was it was something I kind of obsessed about for years. And most of what I thought I knew got thrown out the window once I got into the weeds with it. So if you like a good investigative true crime book that, you know, goes down some weird dark corridors, I think Room 100 will be right up your alley.
Awesome. I think I am looking forward to reading that, and I think the audience would definitely be interested in picking that book up. I think that's cool that you're focusing on it as a true crime story that just involves a punk rocker. That's
instead of Satan.
Yeah, you know, it's just one of those things. But it does give credence to, I mean, it shines a light more so onto Nancy than it does, you know, instead of it just being this legend that lived amongst the punk scene for years and years and years. And as you said, it gets built upon. And, you know, like you said, you needed to write a book that detailed the case in a different manner than it had been in the past. And I think it's going to be a terrific book. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Well, thank you. And yeah, to add to that, I think it's very similar to, you know, what we're talking about today on this episode is, you know, Nancy Spungen is arguably the most hated woman in rock and roll. Like, I think
Yoko?
there are more people. I think there are more people that might be more sympathetic to Yoko than Nancy. There's some people out there that are like, yeah, you know, like, she may have broken up the Beatles, but her art's interesting at least. Like, you know, like, there aren't a lot of people saying that about Nancy, which is a shame because, you know, she was a human being with hopes and dreams like the rest of us. And she was so young when she was killed. She was only 20. And there's some overlap there with Shannan as well. I mean, she was a sex worker at one point and lived in a society that was somehow even more misogynist than it is now. And I mean, you know, you want to talk about the cops not caring. Some of her friends didn't seem to care that she got killed because she committed the crime of being a somewhat annoying, loud, opinionated woman, which was a cardinal crime in the punk scene at the time. But the book goes way into that, but like it does sort of touch upon this sort of societal issue of people placing less value on women who are cut from a different cloth and in a different industry than they would like, you know, as far as their opinions are concerned. So it's a tragic story, but I think there's a lot to be learned from it.
Well, I think that's awesome, and I think it's good that you took that perspective, and it's very interesting to hear that you say that she was so hated and that was not a cool thing to stand out and be. I mean, it seems like anti-punk, like, you know, at least to the punk.
I'm sure so many punks are going to hate this fucking book. Oh, he had nice things to say about Nancy.
I mean, let's be real.
This Pollack book.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. You know, the victims deserve basically their due, and I think what you've done with this book sounds like it's right up that alley and kind of exactly covers what we talked about in this episode about not necessarily giving credit where credit is due, and I'm glad to hear that you have done that.
Well, thank you. And this might be the first time I'm saying this on a podcast, but this might be my last foray into true crime for many of the reasons that we have discussed on the show today.
You're
I'm
burnt.
kind of I mean, somewhat. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong. If a case came around tomorrow where a family said, hey, listen, like, we could really use some help on this. We don't think this story's been told properly, or there's some unanswered questions here. Like, if I could be useful, of course, I would consider it, because if I'm not being useful and I'm not helping, there's no point in me doing it. At that point, again, it's selling murder burgers, you know, it's rinse and repeat. There's no point. And I'm seeing way too much shit in the true crime bubble, which does not seem to be bursting anytime soon, that I just don't agree with. And I'm not trying to be holier than thou or anything, but it's just, you know, like we've talked about in the past, I've dealt with so many shady people that are like, oh yeah, we want to make a movie of your book, but you know, how about we fictionalize this one aspect? And I'm like, what, you mean lie?
Yeah.
Like I had a producer from the Oxygen Network who wanted me to come on camera and lie and say that Ricky Casso led a murder cult. Like, he straight up told me, he's like, come on, man, throw me a bone here. Like, the show's called Cults That Kill. Like, we have to talk about that. And I was like, no. And I just don't want to be in that position anymore.
I don't blame you, man.
I want to move on to something else.
I don't blame you. And I mean, you've got your ultra talented guy that has multifaceted skill set. So, I mean, yeah, true crime, I agree with you. I think there are certain aspects of it that have definitely gone off the rails. And it's something like the toothpaste just can't be put back in the bottle or the tube, because once it's out and everybody realizes, oh, money can be made here, then, you know, watch out. And I feel like that's exactly what's happened here in this situation.
I just don't understand. Like, there are ways to, you know, because it is a business. Like, no one's going to do this shit as charity work. But there are ways to put out a true crime product, whether it's a podcast, a book, or a film or a documentary, where you don't have to be scummy about it. Like, I don't understand why people haven't come around to this in the entertainment world yet, because you'd think they'd be paying attention to reviews, and at least there are reviewers out there lately that are taking like a similar stance that you and I are, Bill, by calling out some of these productions. Like, I know a lot of people called out Joe Berlinger for some of his Netflix shit. Like, what the fuck is this guy doing? This was the guy that did, you know, some of the most important true crime documentary work of all time. And, you know, that Cecil fucking Hotel documentary with that bullshit Richard Ramirez tie-in that's been debunked over and over again. And, you know, the bullshit that Josh Zeman has done with the whole Sons of Sam, another debunked fucking theory from Maury Terry, a garbage journalist who's long dead. It's like, you know, if people are getting called out and they're getting bad reviews for it, like, change face. Just be like, no, listen, we're going to take like a more rounded approach to this and a more sensitive and fact-based approach. But it just seems like a lot of the true crime media is like, full steam ahead. Let's go. Let's see how many families we can piss off about, you know, lying about their loved ones, you know, and it's just like, I don't know. I don't want to be in that world anymore. Like, I'm happy to come on here and talk to you about true crime and cases that we care about, but it's starting to feel more like guilt by association the longer that I stay a true crime journalist. So I'm thinking for my next book after this, I think I'm going to get back to my my paranormal roots, my fun stuff, the stuff I started writing about for Rude, New Jersey when I was a kid, you know, the harmless stuff. Like, who doesn't love a good, creepy paranormal story that isn't, you know, preying on the suffering of a grieving family? So I think I might head somewhere in that direction, or a cookbook. we can make a cookbook, Bill.
Yeah, we call it Murder Burgers.
Murder Burgers. There's the episode title right there. Murder Burgers. Today,
I think we might have just named it a true crime show yet to be out.
Murder Burgers. Oh God!
Get your weekly refresher, your Murder Burger.
I kind of flirted with that a little bit, like back when I was doing more like true crime podcasting with podcast 1289. Like we had a true crime like phase for a little bit. If for those of you who don't know, I co-host a podcast called Podcast 1289 with my high school and college buddies, where we just talk about like the dumbest like conspiracy theories and paranormal stories and true crime cases that we can find, never at the expense of the victim, but like really stupid shit like the smiley face killers, another debunked theory that people keep trying to make money off of.
Yep.
And there was at one point we were talking about like, there's all these like fucking listicles that keep showing up on social media about the last meal of Ted Bundy. And, did you know John Wayne Gacy ate 400 pounds of KFC and, 200 strawberries before he was electrocuted? And I was like, why don't we do an episode
own a KFC.
Yeah, dude, this is why I hate Gacy so much, that piece of shit. Like, well, I mean, of course, the murders. But let's forget the murders for a second. The dude tried to get people to call him the Colonel. Like, yeah, call me the Colonel. People call me like, no, you can't give yourself your own fucking nickname, John. Quit it, you fucking
John.
Hooligan.
Take that. Actually, one of my high school friends is playing Gacy in one of these upcoming series that is Ben Green lit. Yeah, he's Gacy. He played the second hand.
Is it the one that Ryan Murphy's making?
Oh, I don't know. We're not going to talk down about it.
Wait. Hold on a second. Oh, you said it's, what is it? Ben?
Chernus is the actor, the last name. Michael. And
his name is?
He's Juilliard.
Oh, Michael Chernus?
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I think I know this.
And he, so I went to high school with him, and then he went to Juilliard after that. But his brother was in my group of friends, and they run a heavy metal burger place in LA called Grill 'Em All. And they get every metal band in the world to come and do signings, and they have special burgers. And they won the Great Food Truck Race the first year. And Michael was the second man in Captain Phillips. He played the...
Oh, no shit.
Not Tom Hanks. He was Tom Hanks' right-hand man. And he was also the guard in... He was also the guard in Orange is the New Black. So...
This is so weird. I'm pulling this up, and it's like, Michael Chernus to play John Wayne Gacy in Peacock's Devil in Disguise. I'm like, oh, yeah, I saw that. And then I noticed the date on it. It says June 20th, 2024. And I'm like, wait, that came out like 3 years ago. And it's like, no, they're apparently making a limited dramatic series. And it's like, you already fucking made a Gacy series with that title. You can't use the same title twice. What are you doing? No disrespect to Chernus. I'm sure he's going to do a great job. But Peacock, you're fucking up.
Well, I mean, let's think about it. Netflix, Lost Girls, Gone Girls. Come on, man. We aren't talking about the geniuses of, studios here.
Two Broke Girls.
Yeah, let's come next? On. 2.5 Men. I don't... We could just go down the CBS list of show names.
That show was actually named after what they found in Dahmer's apartment. Most people don't know that. No, I'm just kidding. Please do not put that in.
All right, I'll mark
going
that.
Straight to fucking hell for that one.
All right.
Yeah,
well, let's
you want to talk about murder burgers?
Yeah.
I know all about those. Fuck. Got kind of carried away a little bit there. Oops.
Yeah, I was hoping to have my own personal chef, but apparently that didn't work out.
Yeah, I kind of drilled a hole in his head.
Put too much poison in his brain.
Jesus fucking. It's like sometimes I do find myself kind of falling into that trap where I'll like see like a Dahmer documentary, and especially after I read and watched My Friend Dahmer, where it's like I almost felt bad for the guy, and then like I always have to like go, no, hey Jesse, why don't you go read the PDF of his 500-page police report again, and then like I see the photos of the apartment and read about his pedophilia arrest, and I'm like, no, I need to not feel fucking sorry for this guy.
He does come across that way, in that weird freaking way, like he's a tortured soul or something like that, and it's not what should be remembered about Dahmer at all, because he was a monster. And yeah, he may have,
you know what I think it is? I think it's like he was the one serial killer that at least had the decency to be like, Yeah, all right, I guess the fucking jig is up. I'll tell you
I'm
what I did. I'll
crazy
tell
as
you where
fuck.
everything is.
I'm crazy.
I'm crazy as fuck.
I couldn't control
I'm
myself.
sorry.
I couldn't control it. I even killed another dude back in Ohio. You probably have no idea about that, but I'm going to tell you. Like,
Yeah.
I think that you're right. I think there is a little bit of that within that.
At least he was real about it. You know what I mean? At least it's like, well, the guy's a straight shooter.
Yeah, whether or not that can be a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
Well, it was good for the families. At least he didn't jerk the fucking families around by playing, fucking bones for time games the way that Bundy did at the end. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah, I'll tell you where the bodies are buried, but no, not at all. They're still finding
but
those.
Don't kill me.
I
still can't. I cannot believe they let him fuck his wife and smoke weed in jail. You've heard about that, right?
Bundy. No, I don't know about that. Shockingly,
he spent his last years on death row getting conjugal visits with his wife.
I knew that. I knew that much.
He had a weed connect in jail. Bundy was. That's why he was so fucking arrogant by playing those games, because he was just like, I got a good thing going on here. I'm just straight chilling.
Yeah, he's just like taking advantage of the system. Cool.
I wonder if he was stoned when he was talking to that dumbass priest. How funny would that be? Like the second, like the priest, like the camera crew goes away and he's shaking it off. Thank you very much, Ted.
Fires up
God
a
help
Huber.
us all. Yeah, thanks, dude. And then the guy walks out and he's just like, I'm too fucking high for this. What the fuck did I even say?
Yeah, what just came out of my mouth? I don't know, man. You said something about porn, and
I said something about porn. Wait, why was I talking about fucking porn?
I love porn. Why am I talking about it?
Porn rips. I'm gonna go fucking jerk off now. Like,
all right, we're editing this part out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. None of this is making it in.
No, let's do a clean wrap up before we get in too much trouble, because otherwise I'm gonna be.
Dude, you got to come on 1289 sometime, because this is what 1289 is like. We just totally make fun of dumbass serial killers.
Right.
Like we've ripped on Gacy so many fucking times. It's not funny. And then it's kind of on hiatus right now, but there's a sister show that we have called True Crime Movie Club, where we review.
Oh
like,
yeah,
all
you told me about that.
Yeah, and we've watched at least 5 Gacy movies, and we're just like,
God,
they still are trying to make this guy scary, and it doesn't work.
Dude, he's picking up kids at a. Oh yeah.
Hey, you think we could get Michael to come on the show and talk about playing Gacy? That would be an interesting episode.
I honestly, I can reach out to him, and I would love to have him do it.
Let's have a Gacy roundtable with Chernus. That'd be great.
All right, sounds good. All right, let's wrap it up. Jesse, man, thanks so much. This is always a pleasure. We end up talking forever about these crazy cases and go down some crazy rabbit holes. And for anybody who's interested in learning more about your books and the upcoming book, where would they be able to find that?
Oh, no, please, people, leave me alone. No, I'm just kidding. You can find my books. I think all of them are available on the big 3 retailers. I don't think you're going to be able to find Death on the Devil's Teeth in a bookstore unless you live in Jersey. Like, History Press is kind of a regional publisher, so they kind of like to keep everything in state. But you can find copies of it online. Just make sure you get the one that was released in 2022. It's an updated, expanded, and revised edition with new information on that case. Acid King, along with the documentary adaptation, can be found everywhere. It's available on Blu-ray from Wild Eye Entertainment. So wherever you get your Blu-rays, you can find it. Be sure to support, independent retailers when it comes to physical media. I'm a big physical media proponent, and there are some really, really great online shops out there. So yeah, you can find the Acid King Blu-ray, places like Grindhouse Video. I think Diabolic DVD might have it. You could probably also get it from Wild Eye's website. So definitely support physical media. And again, Room 100 is coming out on Tuesday. It's available everywhere. It's been available for pre-order, so even if you're hearing it today, which is Friday, I believe, you could still throw an order in online, either straight from the publisher's website or Amazon or, wherever you'd like. But yeah, if you want to follow me on social media, I'm at J Pollack Author. That's Pollack. Most social media platforms. If you want to see me share stupid memes in the middle of the night and occasionally promote my work. You can find me there. And if you want to check out any of the podcasting work that I have done outside of my very much appreciated guest appearances here on Who Killed, you can check out Podcast 1289. It's kind of like Mystery Science Theater 3000 meets Last Podcast on the Left, for better or worse. Like I said, my buddies and I, we discuss and lampoon the dumbest true crime, paranormal, conspiracy cases we can find. If you want to hear us talk about more awful true crime movies that are exploitative and just poorly made, you can check out True Crime Movie Club, which is a sort of sister podcast to 1289. If you want to learn more about the Jeanette De Palma case, there's the Devil's Teeth podcast. And there's a new one that I'm starting up with a buddy of mine, where if you want a bit of a break from doom and gloom, my best friend Mike and I, we are starting a new Beatles podcast where we talk about all things Fab Four and go through the history of the songs and talk about the movies they made and interview some really interesting people. That, be on the lookout for that. We haven't put up a website or anything for it yet, but that is going to be called All You Need Is Pod, because that is the only Beatles podcast pun that wasn't taken. So keep an eye out for that, you all, and keep listening to Who Killed.
Yes, thank you so much again, Jesse. Appreciate it, and look forward to having you on again to discuss other things that aren't necessarily true crime, because, as we know, this can only last so long. So thanks again, Jesse. I appreciate your time. Wow. Thanks, Jesse, for bringing it strong on this week's episode of Who Killed. This was the conclusion of our conversation about the Gilgo Four and some of the inefficiencies that I discussed at the beginning of the show regarding payment or compensation to some of these victims' families. And Jesse is open and honest, and we love it. And that is what we want to hear. And again, when he's a guest, it's always great for me and it's great for the audience. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thanks to Jesse for taking time out of his wicked busy schedule. And as always, I drop new episodes every Friday. And until next time, stay healthy and be safe.